Hey guys, Infidel 1258 here. Today I want to do something different. I'm going to be covering a little clip from one of my favorite books, Rand's Atlas Shrugged. And so this is if you don't know, it's a massive book. It's a 63-hour read from Audible. I use Audible for most of my reading, and this is not sponsored. This is just this is what I actually do. I read a lot, but I do so through audiobooks. For some reason, like reading on paper, like puts me to sleep, but listening to a book will just, it invigorates me, and I just can go for hours. And this book is really powerful. It's about economics. It's about the importance of focus and intentionality. It's about contributing something to the world around you and not being just a leech on the resources and creative power of others. And so I deeply identify with a lot of what she says, and yet I deeply disagree with a lot of what she says. It's a very powerful book, though, at the core. And I couldn't possibly give like a detailed summary of it, but I'm not trying to. I just really want to grab this one. It's about a minute and a half clip that we're going to listen to in a moment, and I'm just going to give you a little introduction on it. And then I'm going to listen to the clip, and I want to do a commentary on that 1 minute and a half clip. It's the book, like I say, is about the broad ideas of what makes life worth living. What is the proper application of one's existence, and she really cuts to the core and says it has something to do with being intentional with each moment, seeking after your own personal gain, and then understanding that personal gain will benefit those around you necessarily, because incidental benefits, such as, just one example, if you guys know I like Jordan Peterson, and Jordan Peterson talks about things like clean your room, tell the truth. Why are these important? They're important because they actually translate into a degree of self-respect within yourself, and then a degree of acknowledgement of respectfulness to those around you. Like, why is cleaning your room important? It's important because actively it says, I'm worthy of having a clean space. I'm worthy of self-care. And then it says to those around me, I respect you enough to try and make this a presentable location. This is my space, and I'm willing to make it a presentable location out of respect for you. And so these little acts of working in the world incidentally benefit those around us necessarily. And Ayn Rand speaks about these things in broad economic concepts, and she talks about how there are looters and there are producers. Producers are people, quote unquote industrialists. This is the dirty word that the people of this book will use. You industrialists, all you care about is money. And she says, don't you get it? Money is actually something bigger than a piece of paper. It's bigger than quote unquote greed and quote unquote the root of all evil, like some people say. It actually represents time. It represents time and attention, commitment and expertise. It represents the creative power of your mind and your efforts. You were able to earn something, and it represents that. It's so important that we understand that as cryptocurrency investors, as non-fungible token holders. That's what we're investing in. We're investing in something that has value. And that's why price never matters, but value matters. And so you have to get to that broader, deeper well of understanding, which is, what is the value of a thing? And I think she cuts to that so well. And in this clip, we're gonna see juxtaposed two viewpoints. One is a politician, bureaucrat who's been put into his place of authority by way of tricking, scheming, stealing, bribing, blackmailing. In fact, in this moment, he's trying to blackmail Hank Rearden. Hank Rearden is one of the main characters of the book, and he is held up as this example of quote unquote an industrialist. Again, that's a dirty word in the book, but in his mind and in the mind of those who respect him and who actually produce in this world, it is a beautiful thing. He is devoted and committed. He has a vision and a path. He's excited to be productive, and he's being intentional with every minute of his life to be productive. That's that's where he's coming from, Hank Rearden, and the politician that he's speaking with came at his role and authority through no effort at all, no legitimate effort, only, like I say, trickery, theft, bribery, blackmail. And I want you to hear how he speaks about, how the politician speaks about the acquisition and the conquest of good men who are productive. And then let's draw some conclusions. It's a minute and a half. We're going to listen to it now. And I really love this book. I hope you guys will give this clip a chance, and then maybe even the book. I don't believe everything she has to say is accurate. I don't think her complete understanding of, or the thesis kind of strikes to the deepest core in some sense, but I can't get into all that today. If you ever want to know more about where I would be critical of this book, I'd love to talk about that too, because I feel passionate about it. And I think it's telling us something important about our life today in 2022 in the actual world. And so pay attention and see if you hear some similarities with what you've seen in the political sphere of our real lives, and maybe even your job and, the politics that goes on there. So again, the politician is about to threaten and explain how he wants to control the quote-unquote industrialist. Here we go.
We waited a long time to get something on you. You honest men are such a problem and such a headache. But we knew you'd slip sooner or later. And this is just what we wanted. You seem to be pleased about it. Don't I have good reason to be? But after all, I did break one of your laws. Well, what do you think they're for? Dr. Ferris did not notice the sudden look on Rearden's face, the look of a man hit by the first vision of that which he had sought to see. Dr. Ferris was past the stage of seeing. He was intent upon delivering the last blows to an animal caught in a trap. Did you really think that we want those laws to be observed? Said Dr. Ferris. We want them broken. You'd better get it straight that it's not a bunch of Boy Scouts you're up against. Then you'll know that this is not the age for beautiful gestures. We're after power, and we mean it. You fellows were pikers, but we know the real trick, and you'd better get wise to it. There's no way to rule innocent men. The only power any government has is the power to crack down on criminals. Well, when there aren't enough criminals, one makes them. One declares so many things to be a crime that it becomes impossible for men to live without breaking laws. Who wants a nation of law-abiding citizens? What's there in that for anyone, but just pass the kind of laws that can neither be observed nor enforced, nor objectively interpreted, and you create a nation of lawbreakers, and then you cash in on guilt. Now that's the system, Mr. Rearden. That's the game, and once you understand it, you'll be much easier to deal with. Watching Dr. Ferris watch him, Rearden saw the sudden twitch of anxiety, the look that precedes panic, as if a clean card had fallen on the table from a deck Dr. Ferris had never seen before. Serenity that comes from the sudden answer to an old, dark problem, a look of relaxation and eagerness together. There was a youthful clarity in Rearden's eyes, and the faintest touch of contempt in the line of his mouth. Whatever this meant, and Dr. Ferris could not decipher it, he was certain of one thing. The face held no sign of guilt. There's a flaw in your system, Dr. Ferris, Rearden said quietly, almost lightly. A practical flaw which you will discover when you put me on trial for selling 4,000 tons of Rearden metal to Ken Danager. It took 20 seconds. Rearden could feel them moving past slowly, at the end of which Dr. Ferris became convinced that he had heard Rearden's final decision.
I'm going to stop it there. It was important to hear both the control that the politician wanted to exude through intentionally tripping up the industrialist with regulation, with red tape, so that the industrialist was forced to play ball. And that is so exactly how I see our political landscape in actual real life. In Canada and America, you see politicians crafting bills that are so complex. They're hundreds of pages long, and there's tons of back scratching. And this is a little help to my good friend who was a constituent and who supported me and who donated to my campaign. And simultaneously, here's a regulation that's going to trip up one of his opponents. This is exactly true. This is totally happening. And it absolutely is a cancer on how we do business, and why it's such a breath of fresh air that we can step into cryptocurrency and step out of some of the regulatory authority, some of the regulatory oversight, some of the fiat. Fiat means like by force. And so fiat currency is only currency. It's only valuable because the government can point, their authoritarian finger at us and control us. They can threaten prison, as is done in this scene here. He's being threatened with 10 years. Hank Rearden's being threatened for 10 years in prison because he traded his resources, the metal he fabricates in this fictional story, to a friend of his who is a business partner. It's not important that he's a friend. He's a paying business partner who willingly gave up money, which again, remember, money is not just paper. It's his time and effort. So the buyer gives up money, time and effort for the seller's objects, possessions, in this case, Rearden steel. And the government comes in and says, nope, can't do that. You guys don't, you're not allowed to trade with each other. I don't care if you voluntarily want to. I don't care if you maker made it. I don't care if the maker designed it. I don't care if the seller, made it legally in every sense and owns it fully and completely in every sense. And if the buyer wants to honestly and, legitimately pay for it, the government can say no. And they do all the time, whether it's price regulation on things like dairy in Canada, or the sanctioning of certain political donations that happen to certain protests that happen around the world. #Hong Kong. I mean, everything about how our money is used is filtered through this poisonous, cancerous sieve of political oversight, which is regulation intended specifically to trip us and grab us and slow us so that they can extract and Ayn Rand would say they can be looters off of the productivity that we are offering. We creative people, even if you're a lawyer or an accountant or a trip advisor for Expedia, like all of these things, you're offering a service to somebody who would be paying it for that service or creating a thing that is value being added to the system. And the government comes in and says, I'm going to tax the income. I'm going to tax your property. I'm going to tax what else? I'm going to tax your capital gains. I'm going to tax your literal death and the assets that you pass on to children. Every layer of it is and then inflation on top of that, right? Inflation is literally a tax, an invisible tax where they get to spend the first dollar. They get to create money out of thin air and spend it without having earned it, and thereby erode the value of the dollar you've saved and actually achieved through effort. This is the system that we're living in, and this is why cryptocurrency is so deeply important. And this is why games like Splinterlands that give you scarce resources for your time and attention while simultaneously entertaining you are so meaningful and revolutionary, because they are beautiful and they are entertaining and they are fun, but yes, they are an opportunity. And the scarcity is the key, because scarcity makes something meaningful. Money is meaningful so long as it is scarce. Your time and effort are meaningful because they are scarce. And therefore, when you commit it to something, to whether it's delivering Lay's potato chips or whether it's, like a repairing a car at a mechanic shop, that effort is worth something because you only have so much life to offer, and your time therefore needs to be compensated, and that compensation currently is dollars. But man, we're moving to a future, we see it here, where your compensation can be separated from that fiat structure, separated from the corruption and the toxicity and the regulatory bureaucracy, which is rotten to its core, and made free. This is why you see Aggie talking about, what does he say? He's like, one of his ideals that he's always speaking about is more freedom. I forget the other two, but he's got three. He's got little catchphrase, and he says like prosperity, freedom, and something. And this is freedom. It's freedom because it's stepping out of the control of that system. And it's Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged is fiction, but it's 100% accurately pointing to legitimate systems that are stealing from us through tax upon tax upon tax, and holding us up through regulation upon regulation upon regulation. And so I thought this was deeply important and at least tangentially related to why I'm so deeply interested in Splinterlands, and therefore I thought you guys might enjoy it. I hope you did. If you enjoy this content, drop a comment below. If you got any questions, leave those too. If I answer your question in a future video and you leave that IGN, I will send a thank you. So guys, thank you very much for your time and attention. It's worth something. So I appreciate it. Have an amazing day. God bless.